Hey, we're talking about the Xbox, obviously, from the title and the gigantic picture. We're going to be going through our top 7 games, ranked. My
Dude,
number 7,
yes.
Beyond Good and Evil.
Oh, okay. See, I was gonna put this on my list, but then I
Yeah.
didn't, and I was hoping that you did because for the first time ever in my entire life, finished this game this year.
Oh, shit. I
Yeah, I
think that
never
there's a
beat it
lot of
before.
people who have never beaten it. I think there's a lot of people who have never played it and are still
Yeah.
clamoring for a sequel. It's a very cool game to like.
What do you think was it? Because everyone's always like, "Ooh, Beyond Good and Evil, it's so unique. There's so many things." What is it about that game, do you think, that makes people think it's so unique? Because going back, I mean, like the camera thing is cool, and the
Yeah.
overall progression is different, but going back in 2017, it is kind of just like a third person action. There's some cool stealth. I think the story stands out,
Yeah.
but you have some nostalgia for it, so go gadget, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, it was to have a game that felt so much like Zelda on the
Yeah,
Xbox was really nice. And I mean, everything was in the right place. The camera felt good, which at the time was still something we would struggle with.
yeah,
I love the combat system, the way you could
I
sort of
like combat.
where you could chain attacks from enemy to enemy. I
Yeah.
remember that first big fight scene where she does that slow motion sort of jumping, flipping thing. That
Hmm.
was pretty cool. The stealth was fine. It kept it interesting. The plot
I think
was really funny at times when it needed to be, like with that goofy guy you need to save, but then mixed in with this huge overarching secret plot conspiracy kind of stuff. And I played it at that age where I was fresh out of high school, and that's kind of when you get into a lot of conspiracy stuff too. You know, you're like reading No Logo and like,
Yeah.
oh man, that's branding, man.
I remember in high school, kind of off topic, but conspiracy, like in cafeteria, in lunch, he'd always be a kid who'd be like, "You want this copy of Loose Change? It's all about how Bush did 9/11." And you're
Yeah.
like, "Totally, I'm totally in it, man. F the system." And I actually think now that I say F the system, that's really kind of the whole entire thing
Hmm.
of Beyond Good and Evil. But going back, yeah, now that you've said a few things like that, I think I take a lot of stuff for granted. Like I played Batman Arkham, so just
Yeah.
fighting people immediately, I didn't go, "Oh, that's something new," like. But yeah, that they used that pretty well. Hey man, Beyond Good and Evil, heck yeah,
That's still one of the best. I mean, now that no one really did it after Beyond Good and Evil, they just left it
no,
alone. Maybe God of
yeah,
War, and then when Rocksteady did it so well with Arkham,
yeah.
that's kind of become the go-to again. Like it still really can't be topped.
And if you guys want to play that, it is available on Xbox 360 Arcade. If you have an Xbox One, it's backwards compatible. It should be only $10. They have like their, Beyond Good and Evil HD version.
What are
So
you?
give it a go.
What are you
Yeah.
still getting sponsored from your old Xbox podcast?
No, I just know that because that's how I played it.
Use the promo code /Matthew Owen. All right,
And then you
what
get 20% off your orders.
1% goes to you. So, what is your number 7?
Okay, I know
Uh-huh.
this is an Xbox thing, but I had PS2 and Xbox at the same time. I'm gonna put the
Brag.
non-exclusives a little bit lower. And like now that I think about it, a lot of these are non-exclusives, but I played them on Xbox, and I think they're more popular on Xbox. But this one, I think had a bigger following on PS2. Is Tony Hawk's Underground, my dude.
Tony Hawk Underground. Okay.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
Tony Hawk's Underground, you were either into the Tony Hawk series or you weren't as
I
a
liked
kid.
the first two I was huge into and then fell
Yeah.
off.
Okay, that's pretty much the consensus is that 1 and 2 are really good, and then 3 and 4 are like okay. Underground, what they did is they took the really good systems that worked in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, and then they actually formed a somewhat cool narrative around it.
Oh.
It Going back and playing it now, it's all very, early 2000s like Hot Topic punk kind of, but for a game that was all about time trials and just one area for 2 minutes and get whatever score you want, to have a game like Underground come out where it's like now you have multiple objectives, there's quests and stuff. It was kind of this natural progression where you see Tony Hawk games now, they've went way too far in that direction, but Underground
Yeah.
and Underground 2 were like really good mixtures of all the elements, where I think Underground 2 and Underground 1 and maybe even American Wasteland, and that I believe was still on the original Xbox or maybe 360. I think that was like the last good frontier of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater before it turned into Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5, and we won't talk about that.
No, let's
But
not.
yeah. You never played Underground at all?
Never played the Thug.
I think the thing that Underground did a lot as well, for those who are into the scene, is you had your pro skaters as unlockable characters and as playable characters in 1 and 2, but it was kind of that Jackass era where you had Bam Margera and all those guys. That's where it was really coming into. So you saw those people kind of as forefronts for characters in the story. You had fictional characters, but yeah, it wouldn't be weird to like run into Bam Margera and him to be like, "What's
Right.
up, dude?" Like, and it's a product of its time, but it was fun then and it's still fun now. And if you guys are interested, they do pretty wicked speed runs of those. Coming up in July is SGDQ 2017, and maybe not Underground is on there, but watching any Tony Hawk speed run is awesome for both nostalgia and just seeing how the game works. So if you're interested at all and you never played Tony Hawk, check out a speed run or something. They're short too. They're like 5 minutes.
Sponsorship number 2. All right.
Man, come on. It's for a good cause too.
Oh, that's great.
What's your number? What's your
You're
number
the
6?
cause. Number 6 for me. I'm doing what you did, where I've
Yeah.
got my top ones, and now I'm on the fly gonna say
go.
number 6 is,
Yeah,
if I'm looking at it critically,
go for it.
Invisible War, Deus Ex.
You know what? I tried so many times to get into Deus Ex, and it wasn't until the 360 Human Revolution one that it clicked for me. Maybe it's because I was just
Interesting.
bad at games. I think it was that I was bad at games and young and impatient. But I really always liked and admired what Deus Ex did in the terms of first-person storytelling.
Yeah.
And that'll come up next now that you've brought this up. But Deus Ex Invisible War, I didn't get super into it. Tell me all about it, man.
Well, Invisible War was very interesting because it was the sequel to one of the most heralded PC games of all time.
Yeah.
The first Deus Ex combined RPG, first-person action adventure, great storytelling, conspiracies, like System
There's
Shock.
no denying
to the
that
next
Deus
level.
Ex is definitely a classic.
Oh yeah, and Invisible War, because they wanted it to also be on the Xbox, they put somebody new in charge. Development went a little crazy. It's actually Harvey Smith, I think is his name. Like, so, although when I say that, it makes him sound like a Batman villain. But he worked on
Harvey Smith, with your
yeah.
Deus Ex.
And I mean, talk about a Two-Face with Invisible War coming out and people not liking it as much as the first one. But he made Dishonored. He's made some other great games. He's a
Yeah.
fantastic developer. But he said the problem with that was that he listened to all these people who said, here's all the things that were wrong with the first Deus Ex and that you should change. And he listened to them. And he said, I
Yeah.
really should have been looking at everything that was right about the first Deus Ex and extrapolated that. Invisible War also went really, really far in the future. So it didn't have that quite gritty believableness.
Yeah.
However, for me, it was the and sorry, a big thing people hated was that because it was also made on the Xbox, it was not quite as visually impressive as people wanted, and
Yeah, the draw distance, right?
yeah, well, they streamlined a lot of things. There was universal ammo, and a big one was that the levels are very, very small. The first Deus Ex people loved because that first level, the Statue of Liberty,
Huge.
you could play that thing for weeks. I mean, there are so
Yeah,
many
dude.
different ways you can approach that. Whereas Invisible War, everywhere felt like you were at an airport. You're like,
Yeah, it was always very tunnely. And it's always
Yeah.
like, go here, do this, and you're very indoors. I noticed that. I have played Deus Ex Invisible War a teeny bit, like maybe the first hour. And if anything struck me about it, it was that it was very, not plain, but it was, the level design was a little bit archaic
Yes.
for the time, too, which is weird.
well, because you were always inside,
Yeah.
and you'd kind of look, and you just kind of walked from like, it looked like an airport at 4 a.m. There were 3 people around. You'd kill
Yeah.
one guard, and if you came back 4 hours later, I mean, his body would still be laying there. But for me, here's the thing: it was my first Deus Ex, so I fucking loved it. I thought it was,
Of course.
I thought it was amazing. I loved the story. I loved the music. And then I went back and played the first one. It really blew my mind. And then Human Revolution was the first game I ever pre-ordered and paid extra for, like one of those fancy metal boxes that doesn't fit on your shelf with everything else.
Really?
And then
I'm
Mankind
surprised-
Divided, I was not that great. I was not that.
Yeah, I liked Mankind Divided, but I'm surprised that Deus Ex Human Revolution is your first collector's edition that you ever plopped down for.
Yeah, but I'm cheap. I'm very, very
Yeah.
cheap.
Looking at my collection just offhandedly, I don't see any collector's editions. I don't think I've ever bought one now that I think maybe a Halo or something like that. Who knows?
Okay. I'm done
here's
talking
my-
about that.
Here's my number 6. Great entry, by the way,
Thanks.
from Matt over there. Dude, killer. Here's one that probably most people haven't played or heard of.
Oh, the hipster gamer.
Underratedgem.com. It's /breakdown, my dudes. Breakdown in one word, Breakdon or
Yeah.
DOWN. Yeah, I can spell. I'm a writer.
Wow.
It's made by Namco, and the reason most people didn't hear about it, it was very niche because it was a first-person, not shooter, but it was like a first-person story. It was one of the first games to kind of use the first-person perspective in more ways than just aiming down the barrel of a gun. It was really, really graphically impressive for its time. I mean, going back, I haven't played it since, geez, probably like when it first came out. I had never revisited it because I feel like if I go back, I'm gonna hate it. But I know that it was at the time it was praised universally for that. I don't know exactly how long it was or how much fell off, but it's a game that I remember very vividly in pieces just because certain things stood out. Like there was a moment, I believe in the beginning, where you throw up into a toilet bowl. And the fact that you see that you get sick or whatever, you're like in this kind of, it's kind of like a futuristic sci-fi kind of thing. Your dude has like this crazy arm that glows up. I think that's the cover actually of the thing.
Yeah.
But it's like this crazy arm. Yeah, yeah. And it's all like this scientific experiment stuff. So like you get sick and you throw up in a toilet bowl. But the fact that you see that, like he actually lurches over and then you see the stuff come out from like that was weird. It was gross, but it was weird and like, wow, I never thought of a camera being used like that. So if for anything, maybe not gameplay, but the fact that they were one of the first to really use the perspective for what it came to be used as. Like if you look at Call of Duty and Battlefield, it's always those set piece moments. And Breakdown was one of the first ones that did it like that. So, I mean, it deserves a list, or it deserves a spot on the list even for anything. It's inventiveness. There's not a lot of stuff that did that.
Now, I kind of remember this as maybe a dumb Melee game, but now looking at the cover and hearing your description, it almost looks like sort of a cyberpunky, very Japanese type game.
It's Namco. So, and like I said, I haven't played it in a very long time, so I'm not going to pretend like I know what the story was all about and all sorts of crazy stuff. But everything I remembered from it, when I got it, it was actually. Do you remember? No, probably not. There was a chain of retail stores called Hollywood Video. It's kind of like Blockbuster, and they had a.
I've been around the world.
Okay, so they had a Game Pass kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it was one of the ones that I picked up during like, 6th or 7th grade when I had the Game Pass thing. So it's not even one that I purchased, but it's something that stood out for me. And when you look at how often I played my Xbox and how much I played it as a kid, the fact that anything stood out to me is worth noting. But yeah, that's all I really have to say on Breakdown. Man, look it up, check it out. If you're interested at all, I'm sure you can get it for like $5. It's not an expensive game.
Okay, my number 5.
Go for it.
Is The Chronicles of Riddick: Escape from Butcher Bay.
Ooh, and my list just got one shorter. Let's go, dude. This game is so good.
This game, you know what? It's funny you brought up the Game Pass from Hollywood Video because when I had my Xbox, they did the same thing at our local video store where you would pay $30 and you could just have a game for a month, or you could bring in the game as many times as you wanted. So I worked right near it, so I just brought in a new game every day. And I uploaded them to my modded Xbox.
Dude, that's illegal.
I know. I was a silly, illegal boy back then. I made more money back then than I do now.
I think the statute of limitations is up on that, so don't worry about it.
Yeah. So I just grabbed this game on a whim, and was I blown away by this game. Talk about first-person immersion.
Yeah.
The first-person melee, being stuck in a jail. I remember the first fight you get into and like making shivs. I mean, it was like actually a very intimidating game. It sucked me in so much. And at that time I had so many games to play. I almost wouldn't play any of them. And I would just go to GTA because I couldn't handle getting into any game without thinking, what's the next one? But this game sucked me in big time. I mean, if you go back and look at it, the visuals, the style, like you can go back and look at a PS2 game or PS1 game and they just don't look like PS3 and PS4 games in sort of the gameplay environments.
But Chronicles of Riddick is so timeless because it just looks good.
God. It looks like a game that's out now. I mean, save like the older resolution of graphics and stuff. Apparently there's a remake that came out on a second version, like Shadows of Athens or something like that.
I don't know if my camera will pick it up, but it's Chronicles of Riddick. Well, I just want to give a shout out real quick because not only is Chronicles of Riddick a fantastic game and probably contains the best prison break in any game ever. Yeah. I bumped my mic. But also, it's one of the most outstanding examples that not all movie games are bad because Chronicles of Riddick is a movie licensed game. But also, like you said, Chronicles of Riddick, The Assault on Dark Athena. I got to give it up to who published this crazy game, Starbreeze. That's right, and they're still around today because in this game that you bought for $60,
Yeah.
it's not a remake. Chronicles of Riddick's Assault on Dark Athena is actually the sequel, but if you buy this inside, it is only one disc. I thought it was gonna be two discs, but it contains the entire first game remastered.
Remastered too, like upgraded.
Just,
looks
it
good.
was just in it.
Yeah.
It was. They were like, here's the sequel, and here's the original for free, and it wasn't even like a big generational gap. We're talking about literally Xbox original to 360.
Yeah.
So the fact that they did that is crazy.
That's like on the GameCube when Rogue Squadron 3 contained Rogue Squadron 2, but you could now play it split screen.
Or when you reserved Wind Waker and they gave you the Legend of Zelda collector's box thing that had like
that thing
four,
was great.
I still have it. It's somewhere around here, but that thing goes for like $200 and it was a pre-order bonus. Like nowadays they're like, here's a flimsy pin for you. And you're like, wow, thanks.
Yeah,
But
that was
back in the day-
extremely generous, especially for Nintendo.
What about Chronicles of Riddick did you like the most? Because I think that game changes very much. You know, in the beginning, it's very much just a prisoner in this crazy high-level prison that you have to escape. And yeah, you go and you meet people, and then eventually it becomes you get guns eventually, and you get the vision in the dark, and the game very much changes. It gets kind of trippy towards the end too. Do you like the beginning, the middle, the end? I'm a huge fan of the beginning. That's a game that
I think the beginning is what stuck with me the most, and it was something that, not being a PC gamer at the time, was the most immersive first person, so brutal, visceral, adult. Just like what always sticks out to me the most is being in that prison and having to fight somebody, you know, for your life in melee combat. And it just felt so, I just had never seen that in a game before.
I think the thing that makes it so good and so different from everything else is it doesn't feel like they're canned animations. They feel very, very organic. And also, I mean, yeah, you have like no health. So if you're going up against somebody, it's kind of like if you ever played the game Condemned, you could block and stuff in that. And that's something you have to do a lot in Chronicles of Riddick because it is just literally you against another prisoner with a shiv or you know, a shaved down like razor. You don't have a lot of options. You're not supposed to just kill everybody. You're supposed to pick and choose. It forces you into a narrative kind of mindset.
Now here's a game with a lot of options. My number 4.
You're just gonna skip me? That's rude.
I thought. Oh, sorry. What is it?
No, actually, no. You're right. Because Chronicles of Riddick would be mine. So yeah, you go.
All right.
No, it's your turn now.
Okay. Elder Scrolls 3.
Okay.
Morrowind.
Okay. See, I wasn't huge into Morrowind. I was more into Oblivion, but I know people love it.
See, Oblivion was the one that first got the real mainstream attention.
Oh yeah.
I think because it was on the PS3 and the 360, those had a lot of market penetration. And then people were so into Oblivion that when Skyrim came out, they were waiting for it. And I mean, for so many people of a certain age, Skyrim is their mecca. That's their
11/11/11 is when that game came out. I remember it to this day. I worked the midnight release. I did play Morrowind, but the thing was Morrowind, I once again was young and sucked at games, so it didn't really hold you by the hand, and it didn't really tell you what to do. And I think that's exactly why people liked it so much.
Well, what I loved about it was that, that first opening scene, you know, waking up as a prisoner, not knowing who you are.
Boat.
Yeah, which handles the amnesia angle pretty well. Emerging and seeing this world. I mean, like, I felt so happy to have an Xbox at that time to see that water. The water in that game looked so good, and now I still love all water in video games. But
I love water.
It just looks so good.
It does.
It's the easiest thing to model, I guess. But, you know, that game was just... You really felt like you were progressing because people hated you. And they're like, you're just a filthy immigrant, basically. They would call you an outlander, and you had to deal with this racism. And
that's crazy.
And as you would level up, you would influence the world around you, and you could really do it any way you wanted. You know, you could, like... you noticed things were changing because you could like influence big events. You could join these different guilds and rise up. And then I went and played Skyrim, you know, a few years ago with some mods and stuff because I'd gotten a new PC. And I got a new PC and I wanted to play a 5-year-old game.
Skyrim holds your hand so hard. It's like follow the objective marker.
Yeah, exactly. The first camp that I went to, I slaughtered 3 of these guys, and I thought, well, I had a feeling I was all going to be downhill from there.
Skyrim's best aspect is the fact that eventually you'll just have like 40 quests and you forget what all the quests are, but you'll
Right.
have a giant map full of arrows. And if you're somebody who likes completion and getting a clean map, oh, you'll have tons of things to do. But I think Morrowind was a better narrative. I think Oblivion was a better narrative than Skyrim. I don't think Skyrim's even that good narrative wise.
Well, there you go. Actually, at the time, I had a girlfriend that really liked video games, and man, like I said, we just graduated high school, so we were exploring all the things you could do as an adult in the gaming world. So we would set up two TVs, two Xboxes,
Yeah.
and she took over Morrowind, and I would watch her and go like, "What are you doing? All you do is pick up herbs and make things and sell them. That's
Hey
what you
man,
do
maybe
for hours and hours and hours was make potions."
MMO stuff before it was MMO. Man, I'm excited to
Yeah.
revisit Morrowind in the new Elder Scrolls Online expansion.
Yeah, you
that I'll
said
be
Tuesday.
playing soon. Yeah, dude. It's open in like early alpha or like test beta or whatever, public beta for PC. But
Cool.
Xbox and PlayStation are getting it.
All right, what is your number? What are we on, 4?
Yeah, question mark number. Yeah, I have 4 left. Let's go. Ooh. Yeah, I'm gonna go Oddworld Stranger's Wrath, and it
Cool.
would be higher up. It would be higher up. No, never mind. It's gonna sit there.
All right.
Oddworld Stranger's Wrath is good because once again, it's a first-person game that isn't just shooting. It's very stylistic. You play as this bounty hunter, and you have a crossbow, and instead of using ammo that's just like bullets, I mean, you have stuff like that. You have these little fur ball dudes, and each little animal or little fur thing. Each little ammo, I guess, it's a different ammo. So like, here's like a stinky one, you'll shoot it, and maybe that'll gas out the enemies. It's weird because each level or each encounter, each bounty hunt, because you're going and trying to get these guys, it's kind of like a mini puzzle in itself. You're trying to figure out how you want to approach everything with the ammo you have and how you want to play. And it's not always just run and gun. There's some tactical thinking. And for the time, you had a lot of games like Call of Duty, Big Red 1, and your Battlefields, and it's very much first-person games where aim down the gun and shoot the Nazi. And Oddworld Stranger's Wrath was, I think, really the first game that was like, yeah, you can also shoot things, but you're like this weird animal dude in the desert and you're shooting fur balls, and it's way crazy stylistic. And it was a good game that bridged the gap between adult and kid. It was like a good teen game. One of the few games I was like, this is a game that really should and needs to be teen, because that's
Right.
exactly what it embodies. So yeah, if you never played that game, I'm pretty sure that one's also backwards compatible.
I
for an
don't think
Xbox.
I've heard of it. Is this in the Oddworld Abe's Odyssey universe?
Well, and that's the thing is, yeah, it's like a spin-off. It's Oddworld, so it draws that it has like that kind of mythos. It doesn't
Yeah.
really, it's not as much as Abe's Odyssey, because Abe's Odyssey has its own kind of aesthetic. This is very like rural and desert looking, but it does have the mythos of Lost, or I can't even talk, Oddworld. But it's very much about the stranger. That's the main character's name. He's the stranger, and he's a bounty hunter, and you're just in these towns, and they'll be like, hey, go get this bounty, and then you'll just go. It's kind of open world, explored. Dude, now the more I think about the game, the more it's so good. I think I have the case around here, but seriously, Oddworld Stranger's Wrath is where it's at. That game is great if you are interested at all in first person combat that is not just run and gun. Yeah, go for it.
Sounds cool.
Yeah, you should try it, Matt. I would be interested to see what you think, because it does a lot of things that are different, and it does a lot of things, and it like really dedicates itself to those ideas that are different. So if you
Right.
don't like something about it, you're going to get a lot of it. But vice versa, if you like a mechanic, you're going to get a lot of it as well.
Maybe we'll do that in the upcoming series where we go back and play favorites from our younger days and then compare
Yeah,
them.
dude.
Where one
Yeah,
person
dude.
has the history and one person is going in fresh. My number 3 is the complete opposite of that. It's Halo.
Which one?
1.
Okay, I was like, you're getting me crazy, man.
Halo 1, baby, because that was I had actually convinced people that who didn't even know what a LAN party was, or had some of them had never really played video games before, but convinced them to like bring 3 TVs, 3 Xboxes, 12 controllers, and play link a bunch of Xboxes together.
GoldenEye for the N64 is what Halo 1 was for the Xbox.
Yeah.
As far as LAN, and because that was before Xbox Live. Like, you could play on PC, but it was
Right.
all LAN
Well,
stuff.
you could fake it, and you could trick it into thinking that you were playing LAN and you could play online. But yeah, and then in Halo 2, I think in a way was sort of the first sort of mainstream console of playing online, that like
Yeah.
competitive online. I mean, you can play other shooters like Unreal Tournament on the Xbox Live service, Ghost Recon, but I think
Yeah.
Halo 2 was the one everybody was. That's the one they knew. That's the one they felt comfortable playing and
Now
playing
that
the
you
one
say
online.
that, honorable mention Unreal Tournament, whichever one was the one that gave you a sword, because I played a lot of that in elementary school. Yeah, dude, Halo 1 is weird for me because a lot of people like it was my first shooter because I only played on consoles. My first shooter was Wolfenstein 3D when I was 2, so like I'm spoiled on my first person shooter. And when it came to Halo, don't laugh, dude. My dad was my oh my god, it's a whole story. We don't even have to talk about it. I was 2. My dad was testing out a level because he made the first level pack for that game with his buddies, like pre-internet era. So I was 2 years old pressing the
He
shift
he
key.
made the first level pack.
Yeah, it's called Shankenstein. I'm not trying to like name drop. It's called Shankenstein. It was literally the first DLC ever that my dad
Wow.
programmed. He didn't level design. He did like QA stuff. That's a whole thing. It's a whole story. I'll tell another story someday. Maybe I'll bring up. I think he has the content. We can maybe play it together and do a video on it because that shit's
Yeah.
lost to the ages. Like try to find that. It's gone. Yeah,
How
Halo.
convenient for your unbelievable story.
I'm telling you, man. Jerk off. I'll bring my dad on. No, I won't. Halo. My older brother got an Xbox for Christmas, and then he sat in the living room and played Halo all day. The campaign. Even my mom sat and watched because at the time it was still a spectacle.
It was very cinematic, yeah, and just
So
so bright and beautiful, and
yeah,
it like had just a very lush world to check
I
out.
played it, but my first impression of Halo was very much that like passive, like wow, look at this, and I didn't really click onto it until Halo 2, I think. But yeah, Halo Combat Evolved is crazy good. I mean, there's a reason that it's like the grandfather of console FPSs.
Yeah, I thought it was I mean, the regenerating health.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
kind of set up almost every shooter nowadays. That's sort of more slow moving because you didn't have a mouse. It couldn't be that accurate, so it was everything was a little slower. I mean,
It's a really good benchmark because the regenerative health. I mean, when did the original Halo come out? Like 2000 what? 2?
something
Right?
like that.
2000?
Yeah, 2001,
It's
2002.
Call of Duty World War II, which drops this year, is the first Call of Duty game since then to not use regenerating health. So how long has
Right.
that been a staple at this point? Like at least 15 plus years.
For sure.
Like that's a mechanic, dude. That's a thing. That's a statement.
Yeah, and then I think the latest Doom came back and said, "Look,
Yeah.
instead of hiding all the time to get your health back, isn't it more fun to go rip somebody's head off and take the health back?"
Doom is so smart about the way they did it. But this ain't about Doom. It was about Halo.
Halo, yes. I mean the co-op split screen I loved. It was almost like a puzzle. You would have these really difficult areas, places to hide, and then you would have to figure it out together how
Yeah.
you're gonna make it through. The big story pieces, the flood on the way back that people didn't really like, but was
The
still good.
library. Oh, that
And
terrible level.
you know, and like that same girlfriend's dad playing it. You know, and another
Yeah.
person who had never played a game, but well, they get so locked into it, and then you talk to them a couple weeks later, and they're like, "Now I can beat it on Legendary."
I also remember hanging out with my buddies, neighborhood jovial hangouts when you're like 10 or 11 or whatever. And
Yeah.
remember my buddy's dad playing it and me wanting to play it. And he called my mom and said, "Is your son allowed to play this because it's mature rated?" And of course, my mom was like, "No." But yeah, and looking back, like, geez, Halo is such a teen rated M game. I think they fished for the M rating too. But yeah, that's really probably like the last game besides Guitar Hero that I can remember seeing people who didn't really game play.
Sure, you know, in that generation, Grand Theft Auto 3 had come out, and that was one that you would
Yeah.
see a lot of people play. You'd see it at parties. You know, people
GTA
passing the
3.
controller around. All right,
Let's move. You know what?
what's your number 3?
Yeah, let's keep it in the first person shooters. Dude, so many first person shooters. But here's the thing. This game
Yes.
is up on this list for literally like one feature. Okay. It's Time Splitters 3 Future Perfect.
Ooh, okay.
Now, let me tell you something. As a game, Time Splitters 2 is infinitely better, right? Okay, I played that on GameCube mostly, so that's why I didn't put it on the list. But Time Splitters 3 Future Perfect on the Xbox, specifically on the Xbox and PC, so it counts on PC, had its level editor. But what they did is they let you share levels. And the level editor was good. It was pretty easy to use. It was something that you didn't need to know a lot about game design or coding, but you could make full levels. And people would even go as far as to make entire campaigns. So you would
Wow.
just go on this. It was just literally, if you had an Xbox Live connection, you'd start up Time Splitters, you go to maps or whatever, and you just search.
Oh,
and
wow.
you'd have I remember specifically playing one that was all you were supposed to be Tom Clancy. It was like not Tom Clancy. You're supposed to be the Splinter Cell dude, and you're like
Yeah.
walking through, and there was crazy things you could do with the lighting, and it was still old school, like collect the key card
Sorry, now
stuff.
I'm imagining the author Tom Clancy as a secret agent killing people. But yeah, continue.
On our podcast, we have a whole goof about Tom Clancy. That guy gets way more shit than he deserves for being like an author. But yeah, that was a thing. People recreated entire levels of Doom and stuff, and it's something I love. It's a guilty pleasure in gaming I have, and it's something that I think we should do more is user-generated content. And I believe that 9 times out of 10, if you take the tools that you use to make a game and give it to the public will make a better game than you did. Just give them enough time to figure out what they like. And Time Splitters 3 Future Perfect was maybe it was just the levels people had ended up making on the service. Maybe it had nothing to do with the fact that like the level editor was crazy, but the shit people made was crazy good. It was better than the original game itself. And when they shut down Xbox Live, I of course was like, oh, Halo 2 and Halo 1. But at the same time, I was also like, Time Splitters. Like those levels are all lost. But as a franchise, like Time Splitters is crazy good, and it gets overseen way too often. There's been rumors of a Time Splitters 4 for like ages, 10 years at least. But yeah, looking back, I think this is something that unless you have even if you have a PC, you can't go back and activate those logs. You can't find that server. So it's really something that you could only do then, and you cannot do now. And it's, yeah, dude, now that, that makes me depressed. I really wish I could go back and play Time Splitters 3. But dude, user-generated content in that game was crazy. That's why it's so high up on my list. Did you play any of the Time Splitters?
I really liked the franchise. It felt like a video game.
Yeah, because instead of there was a story mode, but they also had like a bunch of little challenges, and you had your old school split screen, tons of different modes. It was very eclectic.
Well, because GoldenEye did that really well, where it was about replaying the levels multiple times and having these imposed challenges. And that felt very much like an older game, and like what Capcom does with the Resident Evil games. They design them to be played multiple times, and that just felt like a real traditional video game thing, because earlier games were very challenging. If you're good at Contra, you can beat it in a couple hours.
Yeah, exactly.
But in order to get 20, 40, 200 hours of content out of it, they had to make it so friggin' difficult. And I felt like Time Splitters and GoldenEye, they really figured that out.
I think in the pantheon of first-person shooters that kind of have that very specific style that's kind of fun to play and irreverent and weird, like GoldenEye was what initiated the style, but had the style of gameplay, but had, the James Bond storyline. And then you had Perfect Dark that got weird, and even though Time Splitters I don't think was made by Rare, I think that was the one that made...
same team, though.
Okay, yeah, maybe not the same name, but the same team. I think Time Splitters is like the full realization of everything that GoldenEye and Perfect Dark was aiming to be. It just didn't have the name to back it up. But yeah, Time Splitters 2 and 3 Future Perfect, by far the greatest.
That was your number 3, correct?
Yeah, because I only got 2 more left, buddy. So let's see what's going on here. What do you got?
My number 2 is
a
game starring Ryo Hazuki. Can't remember.
Ryu Hazumaki. No.
Hanzo-san. Number 2, Shenmue 2, baby.
Dude, I've never played Shenmue.
Shenmue, you know what I think is the funniest thing is that everybody's screaming for Shenmue 3 and they're pronouncing it weirdly, and they go, "Oh, Shenmue, E3 reaction video, Shenmue." But the funny thing is
don't make that joke, because then we're gonna do E3 reaction videos and look like chachas.
I don't react like that. I react like a stone. But Shenmue 2 and Shenmue 1, even though they were supposed to be this grand trilogy combining an epic story and RPG and a simulated world and better get to work on time with Virtua Fighter combat. It was like when you were a kid and you said, man, what if Street Fighter combat was mixed with Final Fantasy? How cool would that be? Why can't anyone do that? And Shenmue fucking did it. But
I'm still asking that question. Why doesn't anybody do that?
Why do they keep doing it? Well, because resources. It takes long to get all those systems together. But it would be cool if 2 developers would work together and jam the games together. But anyways,
Shenmue.
What I like about Shenmue is that I think it's kind of stupid and very silly.
I'm glad you said it, because that game is so weird and dumb.
It's dumb. They put in so much shit. Like, Ryo is a jerk most of the time. I think his lines are delivered really funny. All the dubbing is really funny. I would watch and play that with friends, and we would just laugh at it.
Oh, the localization was so shit. Like, what are you gonna do? You know?
And it was there's a great scene where like the kid comes up to Rio, maybe the Shenmue one I'm thinking of, and kicks
I
a
did
soccer.
play Shenmue 1.
You did?
Yeah. Are
Okay,
you talking
now
about soccer
now
ball?
I'm thinking about when he says, "Hey, Mister, wanna wrestle?" So I found the voice actor
Yeah.
for Rio.
They're still in
And
work?
what's that?
Are they still working?
He still works. He works for like Disney and does voiceover stuff, and
That makes
he does
sense.
those like Disney live action stuff because he's a martial arts guy. Anyways, I found him on Facebook, and I just yelled, "Hey, Mister, wanna wrestle?" in all caps. And then I guess he accepted my
blocked
friend
you.
request after that, and then I could see everything on his wall, and he had just had a baby girl. So his whole wall was like,
Nice.
"Congratulations, she's a beautiful wonder. Oh, you were so blessed." Blah
And
blah
then
blah. And
here's
then
this
me,
asshole.
"Hey, Mister, want to wrestle?" But he didn't.
Nice.
He didn't leave it off. He didn't take it off. He
That's
left
good.
it on there because I think he likes being Rio. I think he
Industry
likes.
pals are nice to have. It's always good to have industry pals, especially weird ones like that. Shenmue.
I guess so. So it's. I mean, I don't know if a third one would be as enjoyable because I thought the things they did back then, they thought it was like you had never seen a real time clock in a game. You would never
Yeah.
have to pay attention and go to work at a certain time and meet people, and that made the world feel very immersive. I mean, the insane number of NPCs they had on a screen at a time really made the game feel immersive, especially in Shenmue 2
Oh,
when
yeah.
you go to China and there's just fucking Chinese people everywhere. It actually feels like you're in China,
You're
but
like, holy shit.
I don't like that stuff is not very fun. So I would hope in a Shenmue 3 they would really streamline it down and still kind of keep that campy fun. But I don't
They
think
can't.
it's like that movie The Room. That guy doesn't, the guy that made that, Tommy Wiseau, he doesn't know why it's so funny.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Shenmue realizes it either.
Well, that's the problem, is that if made Shenmue 3, it would be so expensive that it would have to be good. And Shenmue isn't supposed to be good. It's supposed to be entertaining because it's weird.
Yeah.
I mean, people really, really like the story, and I understand that. But, like, I think for newcomers, a Shenmue game would have to just be objectively, like, impressive. And I don't think that Shenmue, besides, like, technically, yes, it's impressive. But as far as the gameplay, like you said, the things that are cool about it are those little Japanese oddities in game design, like working clocks and stuff like that. I don't think the gameplay is really what makes people go nuts, unless you like running through woods for 2 hours.
Or Rio, like petting a cat.
Yeah.
Like an option. They give you 4 options for whether to pet a cat or talk to a cat. And then I love it when he tells the cat, "You're looking good." And then the girl comes up behind him and she's so into him. She's like, "Oh, Rio, how are you? I feel," and he always seems so annoyed she's around because he wants
He's
to
an
play
anime
with this cat.
character.
He's like, "Oh, yeah, whatever."
Let me play with this cat. Let's move on to my number 2 here, which is killing me inside.
Really quick, you know Shenmue 3 is coming out, right?
Is it really? Is it actually coming out?
They did a Kickstarter. It was the fastest
Oh,
Kickstarter.
I know that.
And then Sony announced it at E3, and everyone was like, "What the fuck was the Kickstarter for?" Sony's
Yeah.
like, "We just wanted to make sure you guys were in, okay? Now
Yeah,
we're
I
gonna help
remember-
out."
I remember they announced it. I just didn't know.
Oh, it's coming, like 3 or 4 years or 5 years.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Like Kingdom Hearts, it'll come.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's my number 2. It's as I say it, I really wish it was number 1, but I can't lie,
Oh,
because number 2 is Psychonauts
oh yeah, you would.
by Double Fine. All right, I can't, dude. I can't lie. I own it. Like, I'm looking at the case right now, and there's
Yeah.
another case, like Xbox, PC. It's my little brother. This game is so.
This game is your little brother.
No. This game is so integral to me and my younger brother's childhood that, like, when he was like, "Hey Matt, what should I make my gamer tag?" I was like, "Make it Rasputin Aquato," because that's Raz from. And then I liked it so much that he kind of fell in love with it, and now he has a tattoo of the main character.
Wow.
Well, he's had that tattoo for a long time. But when I think about adventure games and I think about wacky and quirky and weird storytelling, Double Fine is really one of the only ones that does it as weird and as consistently weird. And Psychonauts is one of those games that is truly, it's an underrated gem. When you're like, what is an underrated gem? It's Psychonauts. It's critically received very well, sold very, very poorly. People are always yearning.
Mm-hmm.
There's a sequel in the works that was a Kickstarter. It just grabbed, their publisher and stuff. And it's one of those games that if you have the love for it, it very much fits the exact bill of like a nostalgic game that when you go back to, it's still actually good. Like, it wasn't rose-tinted glasses at all. It was really, really good. And I think the thing that pulls it forth isn't necessarily the gameplay, which is still good, but it's the characters and it's the oddities, because each world you're going into one of these teachers or these professors at this summer camp for psychic kids. You're going into their minds, and you're in their minds, so each world is completely weird and different. And it's just such a great game. It's just such an all-around great game. It had collectibles, it had a little bit of combat, a lot of platforming, tons of stuff for everybody. And it's just one of those games that, yeah, you go back and play it today, you're gonna get the same experience that's just as good as if you played it when it first came out. So yeah, Psychonauts for sure, man. I wish it could be number one, just because I love that game so hard, but there's just other games that I played way more. So
I tried playing Psychonauts last year.
didn't resonate.
I didn't really get into it. It was one of those times where I bought a bunch of games at once, so
Yeah.
I didn't quite have the focus. So I'd like to go back and give it another shot.
Go back and give it a visit. I recently beat it again, but I wouldn't mind going back. Wait, well, maybe it's one of those ones we'll throw in for the childhood
Candidate
favorites.
number 2.
Hey.
All right, here's my number 1. Star Wars:
Okay.
Knights of the Old Republic.
Yeah, I was wondering where you're going to go with it, and the absence of Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic was pretty obvious throughout the list.
Yes.
What's up, man? You are super into KOTOR. I know shit about KOTOR. All I know is that, like, you're the bad guy at one point, and that's like a twist.
Yes, that's the big spoiler.
Well,
That's
I don't
the
even know
biggest
which one that
spoiler
is.
of that generation.
Well, yeah, it's BioWare. I wasn't super into RPGs, but objectively, my older brother was super into this game, and that game is crazy deep, at least with all the different things you can do and the dialogue. It was really the Mass Effect precursor.
Yeah, it definitely was. It was, but when they were still doing that more strategic sort of gameplay, which I really liked, because you could pause the action at any time. You would tell your people which powers to use. You could control anyone you wanted, or sort of set them up. But because they didn't make it an action game, and because it wasn't sort of a turn-based, you could have the two characters run together, and then they would have like a badass lightsaber fight, because it wasn't worried about making it work with real-time controls. It was just, they're kind of an animation. So it looked really, really nice while retaining a heavy strategic flow to it. The writing was superb. It was definitely what we needed after the horrors of The Phantom Menace.
That's for sure.
And it just, even though it was completely different, like a different, you visited a few worlds. I mean, they were brand new characters, but they felt very, very Star Wars. You went on a grand adventure in true RPG form. You could visit planets sort of willy-nilly. You could choose to complete the story, kind of like Breath of the Wild, and in multiple different orders.
All this Star Wars content, man. There's so much Star Wars content, it felt. Like, it was just so many. Star Wars has a tendency to get weird when it goes into the extended universe, but what I think that KOTOR did is it took the things that people know about Star Wars and then kind of eased them into, like, the extra stuff, but it was all written so well. I know people want it, and I know people are probably asked for it a million times, but what I would like to see is a KOTOR remake that fixes some of the aged problems with the gameplay, because the writing has stood up perfectly.
Yeah.
There's some of the mechanics are a little bit clunky, even if you're just going to adopt it to what Mass Effect kind of was. Like, that's okay. But the writing and stuff, yeah, perfect, dude.
Yeah, it really was. And they just nailed Star Wars in a way that hadn't been nailed for a long time. And I tried.
Still hasn't been. It's
still, in terms
nothing
of games,
has gotten.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like some cool the Starfighter ones, and like Jedi Academy was cool, but no one has done a Star Wars, like the Star Wars MMO that came out, that fell flat pretty hard. Like, no one has been able to make a good Star Wars RPG experience in a long time.
Apparently, the people that wrote KOTOR, they've moved on to write for the Old Republic. So, like, the first Star Wars MMO, Galaxies, didn't do very well, but Old Republic, I've heard good things, that it's sort of maybe it struggled out of the gate, but it's come around and people are really enjoying that now. They say that's sort of the evolution of KOTOR. KOTOR 2 I grabbed on my MacBook Air. That's a place you want to play an RPG. And it's, it is a bit clunky to get through, but if you can kind of get into that mindset, it's still pretty fun. That was made by Obsidian, and Obsidian loves the gray area. So they really like to explore that. What is light? What is dark? All the characters seem like to be walking that line.
I feel like KOTOR is one of those games that you should play with a walkthrough for like the first 3 hours,
Yeah,
and then
I think
once you
so.
understand how the game works, then just let it go. I feel like I have to do that often, and I feel bad that sometimes I have to use walkthroughs for old games. But let's be honest, like no one's really going back to play these games for their gameplay. Most people want to play their story. So whenever I was like, oh, I want to replay Metal Gear Solid, like
Yeah.
I'm trash at Metal Gear, but
But
I'd
even
walk through it.
the gameplay can be great. But if you get to a point where you're like, I don't know where to go, I didn't catch that one line of dialogue.
Ah,
There's a part in Metal Gear Solid One where you have to blow a hole in a wall, and that back in that time when it first came out, that might be one of the few games you have, so you just stick it out. But now
yeah,
with the
dude.
distractions of everything else,
I have 400 games on my Xbox One. I can't decide what I want to play.
yeah,
Like
exactly.
the
So
opposite.
yeah, you're not gonna. As soon as your mind wanders, you're gonna move on from it. All right, what is your number one? Wait, let me guess.
Go for it. Give it a good old guesser.
Voodoo Vince.
Blinks the time sweeper.
Right.
No, not even close. All right, so
Fusion Frenzy.
Fusion Frenzy 2 was crazy for the 360. Let me tell you, dude, that shit was crazy. No, anybody who has ever taken their happy ass to the second level of the battle rifle tower on Lockout and then crouched in the corner, jumped up on the rail, and super jumped up to the top of the map knows that I'm talking about Halo 2, baby.
Okay.
Halo 2, and it's literally has nothing to do with the campaign. Like, the campaign's pretty good. Halo
Right.
2's campaign is fun. But, dude, that game, even in comparison to other Halos, is completely unique because it was really all about the dual wielding. I remember SMG on my right hand, pistol on my left. That's how I always used to roll. You had the noob combo.
Right.
The thing was that, like you said earlier when we were talking about Halo 1, Halo 2 was really the mainstream. It was the one that brought all of the people who wanted to play FPSs to the table. They had a bunch of crazy good modes. If you were one of the people who liked to do free for all, it was there. 1v1s, it was there. 2v2s, I was super into 2v2s. It was also one of the first games that really had a universal ranking system. So if somebody at the cafeteria table was like, well, I'm a level 28 in Team Slayer, you'd be like, well, I'm a level 32 in doubles. And then your buddy would be like, I'm a level 45 in cage match. And you're like, no, you're not, because you don't mod. It was such a different time where you could look at somebody online and see if you're a level 43 to 50, you're cheating. There's no way. People would just be hopping into matches, shooting plasma rifles that are literally shooting out plasma grenades. People have hot mods on their stuff. And yeah, that's a frustrating kind of gameplay experience, but it was so of its time. There was a time in Xbox history where you could talk over your Xbox Live mic, and when we weren't screaming obscenities like every other 12-year-old on there, you guys might just stop fighting for a minute and try to do the super jumps.
Right.
People were inventing new gameplay modes like Griffball. People were making custom maps, and it was really a community that was more than just a KD spread. You look at Call of Duty and everybody's like, oh man, I got a nuke, or not nowadays, but everyone's worried about their KD spread. Everyone's worried about their win to loss percentage. But if you go back to Halo 2 and you weren't talking about rank, people would be like, yeah, but can you do every super jump? And knowing and being able to show friends was like, cool credit for being a Halo 2 guy. It also had that co-op stuff with, beating it on Legendary. Like you said, that was props on the playground. You beat Halo 2 on Legendary, you were cool. Like, hell yeah. And I think that just if you were growing up in high school or late elementary school, or you had cool parents and you were playing an M-rated game at like 12 or 11 or whatever, if you were playing on Xbox Live, it was a experience that is very much unlike anything else, because not only was it great gameplay, but it was really the first time people were being social. No one talks on video games online anymore unless you have a clan.
Yeah.
And back then, everybody was talking and everybody had some shit talk to say. It was really a time of its own. And yeah, Halo 2. So you can just talk, Matt, all you want. I'm just gonna bask in the Bungie glory before they made the misstep that was Master Chief and Halo 5 Guardians and Halo 4.
I didn't have Halo 2, but I remember.
Shut up.
I remember just hearing somebody explain to somebody else about the nuke combo.
Yeah, it's
And-
your plasma pistol and then your battle rifle. It was so intricate and so deep, and it was really a community kind of thing. And also, when it comes down to the way that they handled DLC, it's a small little tidbit, but when you're looking at something like Call of Duty nowadays, you have these things called season passes that everyone freaks out about. Like, oh, but what if my friends get the thing and I want to play with them on the map? Halo 2 was like, hey, here's a map pack. Oh, you didn't buy it? Here's the next map pack, but now the first one's for free. So as soon as a new DLC came out, you got the old ones for free, and it was like 5 or 6 brand new maps. Who does that?
Yeah.
No one does that. And like Bungie was like, yeah, here's free stuff. So not only was it a game that was fun to play, but it was always giving you new map packs and new content. There was like 5 or 6 of them, tons of maps, tons of game modes.
Well, Destiny does that in a way. I mean,
Yeah,
once they put out their new one, all the other stuff is usually they bundle it all together, and it's for the person joining. Like I had bought the Taken King collection. I think I paid $50, and I got probably $200 worth of content.
what Destiny would be if Destiny did what Halo 2 did, it would be if I go to the store right now and buy Destiny for $60, I get the newest Destiny. Like I should be able to pick up an original copy of Destiny and download the Taken King and all that stuff for free. And obviously it doesn't make sense fiscally. Like who does that? But then again, people weren't making as much money off DLC as they were back then.
There you go. Wow.
But yeah. So Halo 2 versus KOTOR. That's our number ones.
Yeah.
I think universally, I think KOTOR
so
probably
similar.
has more fans. Yeah, like giant Star Wars RPG versus first-person shooter, military. What are you gonna do?
Oh man, they're so hard to compare, and they are both so important.
I mean, they're tied for first. There you go. There's no winner in this race, guys. All these games are great. If you haven't played any of these games, I highly recommend, especially Matt's list, because it was good variety. I think mine was like a lot of first-person experiences. Now that I think about it,
I don't
and
know,
like
you had some Beatdown, Breakdown.
first-person experience.
I want to check out Breakdown.
Dude, go for it, man. Maybe I'll check it out, and maybe we'll go back, and then after we're done playing it, I'll be like, wow, this shouldn't have been on my list at all. Who knows?
That's what we'll find out in the next series of videos. Thanks everybody for watching.
Jesus.
You can find our stuff on a90skid.com. You can find me on Twitter at GameThinkTalk.
You can find me on Twitter at SGC64Matt.
There
it's
you
a
go.
Fun place.
Thanks everybody for watching. If you know somebody that might like it, be a good friend and share it.
Do it.
Bye for now.
Right on.